Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. My name is Tim, and this show is presented by the Grid Network. Oh, man, what a week it has been for the Patriots. I mean, it has just gotten worse and worse and worse. I mean, that game against the Cardinals on Sunday was just atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. Top to bottom, any way you squeeze it. I mean, sure, the one good play you had was that interception that ended up getting overturned because of a horse collar tackle or roughing the passer on Kyler Murray. But, I mean, to me, that was just, okay, yeah, it is what it is. You know, like, of course that happened. But, I mean, this Patriots team, let's face it, this Patriots team is quite honestly worse than last year. That's right. This team, the 2024 iteration of the New England Patriots, is worse than last year's team. Now, by saying that, I want to start off with a thought that has this become a complete organizational failure? Because top to bottom, starting with the ownership all the way down to the players, yeah, it has been a complete organizational failure. And, you know, just looking at it, right, just going through the motions and watching everything that has gone on these last, we're at what, week 15, these last 15 weeks, it has not been a New England Patriots team that I sure as hell grew up with. Okay. And I know a couple weeks ago, I was accused of saying that, hey, you know, I'm comparing Gerard Mayo to Bill Belichick, and that's wildly unfair. That was correct. I did not mean it in a, 1-to-1 ratio. Now, were there things that I'm just looking at as common sense that Gerard Mayo does not take? That's kind of what I meant. Like just the little things, the little nuances, the wind direction. I mean, you can feel the wind going left to right, right to left, north to south, south to north, right? You can feel that. And so what, you telling me that the wind changed? No, didn't. But I think after everything that happened against the Cardinals this past Sunday, just goes to show that this team's got no fight in them. This team really has no fight. They don't care, or some care, but not enough. Not enough. I mean, I was listening to the pregame show, and Scott Zolak even pointed out that, you know what? This team does not look like they're hungry. This team does not look like a team that has just come off a bye week where they've had 2 weeks basically to prepare for this game against the Cardinals, which, to be honest, it shouldn't have been that hard. This should have been a competitive game. The talent discrepancy between you and the Cardinals should not have been that much. You know, Kyler Murray, as much as there are times where I want to have faith in the kid, you know, just from a pure football perspective, he always finds a way to just blow it up, to let you down. And again, it's not saying I'm rooting for Kyler Murray, but, you know, he can run around, he can chuck the ball a country mile, he can do all these great things. But he does not know how to put it together, right? And I don't know if that's the scheme or whichever way it's going. It is what it is, right? But with the way Christian Gonzalez locked down Marvin Harrison Jr. On Sunday, I mean, that was a great performance. Great performance. Which, again, just goes to show the only two guys that I know are, for a fact, are locks on this team are Drake May and Christian Gonzalez. Maybe Keon White if you want. But, I mean, he's fallen off a cliff. Every time his name got mentioned, especially earlier in the season, he was called for all the different kinds of penalties. Just wild, undisciplined, not being able to set the edge, all these simple things. So I've got 3 players that I know for a fact are guys that should be on this team for the remainder of their careers, at least as of right now. And that's the second-year guy, Gonzalez, who basically is playing the rest of his rookie season right now. It's Drake May, who's 22 and already not only a stud on the field, but a consummate professional that the more we lose in the way and just getting blown out, it's not looking good. And then, of course, Keon White, as I mentioned, the kid's just a physical freak. So if he can get his head on straight, then I think we're golden. But when you're looking at the stats, okay, what the big crucial down that you need to convert to win the game is third down, right? This is how the Patriots stood out on third down, versus the Cardinals. 3rd and 10, gained 4 yards, didn't convert. And sorry for the logo on the top right-hand corner of the screen. It's just asking, did the Patriots convert? Yes or no? And as you saw, a lot of it's no. 3rd and 19, gained 11, didn't convert. 3rd and 7, lost 1. Nope. 3rd and 1, no gain. Nope. 4th and 1, the toss to Ramondre Stevenson, gained 2 yards, which, let's be honest, that toss to Ramondre Stevenson, show of hands, how many of you thought that they were not going to pick it up because there was a toss play to the left-hand side? Yep, exactly. It was just awful. Terrible play call, but Stevenson, to his credit, he picked it up. Then you had a 3rd and 16. They gained 8 yards. Obviously, did not pick it up. 3rd and 1 on the goal line. Nope. 4th and 1 on the goal line. No. Back-to-back plays from the Arizona 4 in the third quarter. That's the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, the bottom 2 there. Just absolutely atrocious. I don't know how else to describe it. Poor coaching, poor play calling, poor performance by the team. Just an absolute joke, right? That's what that was. And you're coming off a bye. You got 4 games left. And yes, according to the DVOA, it is the hardest 4-game remaining schedule that any team has to play. Especially now the fact that, hey, we're going to Baltimore on Sunday. We're going to Buffalo on Sunday. And then Buffalo gets to come here just 2 weeks later. We might win week 18 against Buffalo, but again, both you and I know that if we win in week 18, that means Josh Allen sat, James Cook sat, Dalton Kincaid, their starting defense sat. That's the only way it's going to happen. And that's what I don't understand is that, again, we're the same team that we were last year, for the most part, with the addition of Drake May. How is it that this team is the same exact one as last year and has a much better quarterback? Oh, wait, we're not better? It doesn't feel like it. Like I said on this show 2 weeks ago, that even though we could end up with the same exact record as last year, I don't know about you, but to me, it feels like we are 0-15 at this point, or 0-14 at this point. We haven't won a single game. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of blame to go around, and that's why the title of this show is a whole team failure. If I could, it should have been, organizational failure, but not for nothing with that. Organizational ran a little too long, it's the whole thing. But it is an organizational failure, top to bottom. That's how this feels. I mean, when you look at everything that's gone on since Robert Kraft bought this team, he inherited Bill Parcells. He then hired Pete Carroll, which 3 years of Pete Carroll, okay. Maybe there were certain steps in the right direction in the beginning, but then it fell off a cliff. The players tuned him out, and that's why you got what you got with Pete Carroll, and that's why he let him go. Then he made the bold move, which at the time was a very bold move because a lot of owners in the NFL were telling Robert to stay away from Belichick. Instead, he paid the Jets a first-round draft pick to get Bill Belichick. Bill, stumbles upon Tom Brady. It wasn't a total stumble. The scouting team did their job, but they got him in the 6th round. They stumbled upon him. Turns out to be the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Okay? You had 20 years of dominance, and then egos came into play. Tom Brady had an ego. Bill Belichick had an ego. Robert Kraft certainly had an ego. And if it didn't show when Brady and Belichick were on the decline and about to get out of here, it sure as hell showed up within the last 12 to 20 months. Robert Kraft's ego. And so now Belichick is gone. Brady's gone. Who are we going to blame? The first-year head coach who 6 years ago was working at Optum, had no business, had no football business outside of the fact that he used to play here. Then he gets hired as a linebacker coach, kind of builds his way up through the system, but never gets defensive coordinator. Him and Steve Belichick kind of split the defensive coordinator role. And then 5 years ago, or maybe it was 7 years ago, Gerard was working at Optum. Regardless, 5 years ago, here's Mayo talking about going on the trip to Israel with Robert Kraft, and Robert Kraft knowing right then and there that that's his successive head coach to Bill Belichick. All because he went on a trip with Israel. He got to know the guy. That's great. Good for you. But there's a lot more that goes into it. And it kind of, I don't want to say pisses me off, but there have been a lot of reports going around talking about how, Dan Campbell had a terrible first year. He went 3-13 with the Lions, and don't forget, Dan Campbell's first year Lions came through Foxborough and got annihilated. All right. So we saw firsthand what Dan Campbell's Lions looked like. The difference that I see with Dan Campbell is the fact that the dude has been a coach basically since 2011. You could say 2010 because he was a coaching intern of the Dolphins. But from 2011 to 2015, he was the tight ends coach, then became the interim head coach for the Dolphins. Then he moves on to the Saints in 2016 as the assistant head coach, tight ends coach, all the way 4 years until 2020. Then gets hired by the Lions as the head coach. So show me the similarity between Dan Campbell and Gerard Mayo, outside of the fact that they were first-year head coaches and formerly played in the league. So I don't see it. Dan Campbell retired in 2009 after the Saints won the Super Bowl, which he was on. He was on that team. And then he became a coaching intern with the Dolphins a year later, the very next season. He didn't go off and spend a few years in the business world to, I don't know, be a corporate stooge, Because sometimes that business world turns you into something like a stooge, I mean, there's a reason why you hear the term, finance bro all the time. Whether or not these people were that going into it, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. And maybe they came out of it turning into that. I don't know. It's just, the corporate world does some funny things to you, especially when you're coming from the football industry, being in the locker room with the guys, just shooting the shit, just talking how you want to talk, playing sports, playing a game, learning different schemes, learning how the NFL is evolving, basically. A lot of these guys, year in and year out, see an evolution. Now, whether they know it firsthand, again, things change. But the coaching staff notices that. The front office notices that. But right now, Gerard Mayo is nothing like Dan Campbell. Absolutely nothing like it. So, when we're talking about an organizational failure, I want to start at the very top. I want to start at Robert and Jonathan Kraft. All right. First, they are the lowest spending team in the last 10 years. Real money. They do not spend a dime, practically. And now they are about to be the New England Patriots are about to have the most cap space in the NFL at the end of this season. Meanwhile, the last time they had a big payday was in 2021, where they got Matthew Judon, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, who I know didn't pan out here, but the dude can kind of play. We just never had used him right, which I think was a total failure. All right, so Jonnu Smith. We got Kendrick Bourne. All right, Kendrick Bourne, outside of him tearing his ACL, wouldn't you agree, kind of worked out? But after that one season, Robert and Bill went back to their miser status where they're like, we're not spending another dime because, let's face it, that's just who we are. And this is the thing that New England never got really a lot of pressure on over the last 20 years because somehow, some way, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. We as Boston fans yell at John Henry for not spending for the Red Sox. We yell at Wick Grossbeck. We really haven't yelled at Wick Grossbeck, but hear me out. We would yell at Wick Grossbeck for not spending on the Celtics. We definitely yelled at Jeremy Jacobs before they put that hard salary cap in for not spending on the Bruins. Hell, they took Ray Bork to arbitration. So, come on. That's like saying Tom Brady has to sign a franchise tag. Oh, that sounds familiar. But that's so when it comes to spending in Foxborough, it was not Robert. I want to spend. It was Bill Belichick. Belichick is the reason why the Patriots don't spend. Belichick is going after the guys that he wants that don't spend. Whereas now, or what should have been 20 years of this, but now within the last 3, you very could clearly see that Robert was just as, if not more, complicit in telling Belichick how to spend his money and whether or not, it works and whether or not he should go after certain guys. You know what I'm saying? So now we finally get to call out the big man for not spending and maybe even the right man for not spending. And not only spending on players, but also spending on staff. Because when you look at this this team, organizationally, you have Matt Groh, who just a handful, just 2 years ago, took over was basically the GM of the front office, even though he wasn't the GM because that was Bill's job. But he was the guy in the front office 2 years ago. Then Bill gets let go. They basically say to Elliot Wolf and Matt Groh, basically, all right, we got to choose between either of you, rather than going out, interviewing guys. I don't know, even interviewing the candidate who ended up going to Washington, and I don't know, he kind of did a pretty good job there, right? The GM of the I want to say it, the Redskins, the Commanders, he was in line to be interviewed this past offseason, but Robert, in his infinite cheap-ass wisdom, was like, no, I'm going to hire in-house from Belichick people. Because Elliot Wolf, yes, while working in Cleveland, while working in Green Bay, has kind of been with the Patriots since 2019, maybe 2020, 2019, regardless. He's been here a handful of years, long enough to kind of have his footprint with Belichick. Matt Groh is a Belichick disciple in terms of scouting, in terms of the front office. And if you're kind of wondering why I'm bringing that up, well, it's simple. Look at the draft that we just had, where Belichick's handprints were nowhere to be found, yet we draft a bum wide receiver in Jalen Polk. We draft a wide receiver in Javon Baker, who can't even make it on the field, which I just heard that he got in a car wreck last week, which is why he didn't play, and that he only walked away with a concussion. So in all honesty, thank God that it was only a concussion. I truly, truly mean that. And I'm glad he's doing okay. But now to be on the football side of things, he can't make the friggin' field. You have the two big offensive linemen you waited till the third and fourth round to even go get, whereas this draft was littered with potential offensive linemen. And allegedly, they were trying to trade back in to the top of the first, or the back end of the first round. And it didn't work. Not to mention Kansas City trading up into a selection that we wanted to go to when they drafted their offensive line prospect, Fashanu, out of Penn State. It's things like that truly bother me, where you're looking at what we have dealt with for, I don't want to say 20 years, but let's just give it 10 years in terms of Belichick's drafting. And all of a sudden, we finally get rid of Bill. He's no longer involved in the organization, except, well, basically his entire staff and team, but that's a different story. But you basically, just bring back Belichick people. You upgrade Belichick people. And yet, they do the exact same thing. So kind of along with the spending, I almost want to sit there and say, well, did Belichick not know how to hire good scouts? Because they're drafting the same freaking guys. Like, I don't understand how obtuse you have to be, especially when it comes to drafting wide receivers. I mean, truly, it is not that hard. If you put in 2 seconds of film watching, I don't know, you can kind of see the big body, the athletic ability. Hell, you sit down in person, you're on the field, done, ball game. That's a guy I want to really, really look into, and I'd stick my neck out for. Not this N'Keal Harry nonsense. Not this Jalen Polk nonsense, who might have been a good receiver, but when you're drafted Jalen Polk third overall in the second round, and he's getting comps to Jacoby Myers, which, listen, big Jacoby Myers fan. Should have never let him go. But I don't want to draft a Jacoby Myers in the top of the second round. I don't. I want to draft a Deebo Samuel. I want to draft a DK Metcalf. I want to draft a Terry McLaurin, who I don't think Terry McLaurin went to the third round when he came out. So the front office, so Robert Kraft, to bring the point to a head, Robert Kraft is cheap, not only spending on players, but is cheap when spending on the front office, because all he did was just elevate Belichick people. And what did he get? Belichick-type draft picks outside of Drake May, which basically was given to them. So I'm not even crediting the front office for Drake May. But then when you move on to the coaching, again, you have Mike Vrabel is available. Somehow, in literally a couple days prior, before he becomes available, Robert Kraft makes it known that if we could hire Mike Vrabel, I'd hire him in a heartbeat. Then he becomes available, doesn't even interview him, and decides, no, I'm going to stick with Gerard Mayo, the guy that I knew in 2019. Yeah, well, how's that working out for you? Because I think that was a twofold reason. I think one of the reasons was, okay, yeah, the 2019 trip to Israel. And then when Gerard Mayo, I think, was going to Houston for interviews, Gerard Mayo or Robert Kraft just called Gerard Mayo and said, I'm going to edit your contract. I'm going to give you, when Belichick's done, you're going to be the next head coach. Put that in the contract. And then he never had to go through the hiring process of hiring a general manager, head coach. He's like, no, Mayo's the guy. Because, and I couldn't tell you why, but, that's what he did. And I wouldn't be surprised, kind of similar to the GM spot, that if he went out and did one interview, that means he'd have to go through the whole Rooney Rule process, and I don't think he wanted to do that. Again, like, just because the rules are in place doesn't necessarily mean that there's no way to skirt the system, and that these guys don't know how to skirt the system and not follow through on that. Again, I've said on this show before, I believe the Rooney Rule is outdated. Just to bring coaches of black head coaches or potential coaches in, coaches of different races in, just to give fake interviews, basically because the owners already know who they want. So, like I said, I think that system is outdated. I understand it back in the day. But now I believe it's outdated because you see these coaches who are declining to go on these interviews because they know it's a sham interview. So you have Robert Kraft, just picking Mayo because of the fact that, number one, he did that trip to Israel with him. But number two is because of the fact that Robert and Jonathan get to claim their team back. They're not beholden to Bill Belichick anymore. They're not beholden to a head coach who wants total control, which is why they cheaped out. They got Gerard Mayo. They had to interview 12 offensive coordinator candidates and settle for AVP because Nick Caley, the passing game coordinator now in LA, or the offensive coordinator, I think, out in LA for the Rams, he wanted a little bit more money. Why? Because the Patriots suck. The roster sucked. If you're going to coach an offense that is probably going to be, in the very bottom of the league, yeah, I'm not going there to be a coordinator. I'm going there. If you want me to go there as a coordinator, you're going to have to throw me the suck tax. You're going to have to throw me the, a few extra bucks my way to be like, all right, fine. Well, I'll come. I'll be a part of this team. So they didn't do that. Instead, they settled for Alex Van Pelt, who never who never called plays in his NFL career except once. All right. And look how that's working out. You know, and so it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable that organizationally, this team, top to bottom, has just not performed. And I've given you the skinny basically on the entire organization. Now, if I break it down and I get to Gerard Mayo. So I saw this very interesting question on Twitter. You know, what the question being, I just want to make sure I get this right. The question being, if this was any other first-year head coach, would we be asking for their head as Patriots fans, or would we give some leniency? And I thought that was a great question, because if we're going to get, so Gerard Mayo, rightfully so, has deserved a lot of criticism. The issue with Gerard Mayo, yes, he's a first-year head coach, and I get that. And trust me, you can go back to when they hired Gerard, when I was on this show talking about it. I was excited. I wanted this to work. I thought Gerard Mayo was going to be a great hire. Well, actually, I should say a great hire. I was hoping he would become a great hire. You know, I was quoting Mike Vrabel when, again, Mike Vrabel was criticized for not rising through the ranks as the lowly intern, getting coffee, breaking down film, doing it the old-fashioned way, to now all of a sudden he's built his time in the league, his time coaching, and then after 10, 15, 20 years, you know, of being in the NFL, he finally gets that shot as a head coach. You know, Mike Vrabel basically, when confronted with that question, was like, really? So I guess me being a head coach, me being an outside linebacker in the NFL meant nothing, I guess. You know, I had to go sit behind a computer, please. You know, like that was his response. So I saw that. I looked at Mayo. Mayo's the guy practically running the defense on the field. I went, this should work. This would be great. You know, here's a guy who knows defense, who knows all the positions basically, because he's running it. He knows the schemes in his head. But then after this year, it has really just been this topsy-turvy, up and down fiasco of a time. You know? And I thought about that question for a while. The question of, again, you know, does if it was any other first-year head coach, would we be giving that person a second chance? You know, and I thought of all the reasons why I want Gerard Mayo out. And a lot of it, yes, has to do with the on-the-field product, but I kind of am 50-50 between the coaching staff and the front office when it comes to that, because it's the players on the field just as much as it's the coaching staff, right? But not for nothing, it's also what he says. Gerard Mayo, once again, finds ways to talk himself out of a job. And just to see his latest example, I got a few clips here of what he said, of him walking it back the very next day, and what a prominent sports reporter thinks about the latest installment of Mayo's words of wisdom.
Consider running Drake in that situation. That it's a short yard situation. We know he can run.
You said it, I didn't.
You said it, I didn't. That could clearly indicate Gerard is throwing AVP right under the bus. He's throwing him under the bus because he's saying, like he said at the start during training camp, AVP is the head coach on offense. So basically, hey, anything offensively, it's not on me. It's on Alex Van Pelt. He's the head coach of offense. That's what he said during training camp. Here, it's a critical question that the reporter was kind of inciting that, is it your decision to run the football? And Mayo went, hey, you said it. Like, basically, is it Alex Van Pelt's decision to run the football? And he goes, you said it, I didn't. That's wild. Now, here's Gerard Mayo walking it back on the Greg Hill show on EEI on Monday. Take a listen.
The remark that I made last night, like you said it, I didn't mean anything by it. Maybe a flippant response. And I tried to clarify that with the next question, saying, ultimately, it's my decision. Ultimately, all of those decisions, offensively, defensively, and special teams, fall on me. And so I just want to get that out there.
Yeah.
Remind me, how many times have we heard Gerard Mayo walk back some pretty damn nasty comments? Oh, it's funny you asked that question because I have it right here. Look at that. See? Oh, my goodness. Look at how prepared I am. Mayo's way with words. Times Gerard Mayo has struggled with comments. Back in January, when he got his introductory press conference, overusing the word thunder. And if memory serves, you could even see Robert be like, okay, stop calling me Thunder. Call me Mr. Kraft. Call me Robert. Just call me anything but. All right. Then in April, when free agency was about to hit, Patriots will burn cash. Then had to walk those comments back, calling them a rookie mistake. He not only played for Bill Belichick, but also worked under Bill Belichick. Like, really? Rookie mistake when making these kind of bold declarations? All right. Then in August, says the best player will play. Also says May outplayed Brissett, but then didn't start May in week 1. And yes, we did beat Cincinnati, but as I said back then, I would actually argue that Cincinnati beat. Now, I will admit, I gave credit to the Patriots. They came out, they played tough, they played a good game, turnover-free ball game. But now looking back at it, oh yeah, the Bengals clearly beat themselves. No two ways about it. And of course, they didn't stop. So good and bad, I guess. Then in week 7, the infamous calls the Patriots a soft football team after loss to the Jaguars, and rightfully widely criticized, including by Belichick. As of week 12, this one blew my mind. More than being called soft, more than it is, it is as it, you said, more than you said it, I didn't. This comment right here, I think, is my nail in the coffin for Gerard Mayo and why I want him gone. He says, quote, once those guys cross the white lines, there is nothing I can do for them after a 34-15 loss in Miami. And now, of course, he has the you said it, I didn't, as, when in accordance with Drake May, doing a quarterback sneak, having a designed run for Drake May. Now, that can be easily explained. He could easily say, listen, as an organization, we talked about it. We don't want Drake May running the football. He's already going to do that enough when he's on the move because the offensive line is kind of a sieve. Ergo, Drake May is going to run on his own. But in terms of designing run plays for him, we don't want him as a team, as an organization, to run him through the gauntlet. We want him to remain in the pocket and be as healthy as he possibly can be. Most of what I said would have been a very fine, acceptable answer. Most. Except for the sieve offensive line bit. But that's all he needed to say. And those words in Miami, that once those guys cross the white lines, there's nothing I can do for them. You were the linebackers coach. So what? You didn't scream to the linebackers, move back, go here, stand there, cover him while on the sideline. You were just like, you kept your mouth shut, let the DC bring the play into the head, to the middle linebacker with the green dot to call the play. They called the play, and you just sat back and like, well, hey, I taught these guys everything during the week. There's nothing for me to do right now. No, you didn't. Like, I think this is why, going back to the question of would I want another first-year head coach who is coaching this team gone within one season? I don't know that I would. And I like to give head coaches plenty of time. I mean, you see the Gator helmet on my case here. I'm a big Gator fan. I went to Florida. I worked for the football team. I've said it time and time again on the show. I worked for the football team. When Billy Napier stepped in as the head coach, I was excited. The first year was okay. It was a little rocky. The second year, not great. This past year, really started off awful. And I still was leaning towards, at that point, letting them go after losing to Texas A&M in week 3. But a big part of me still didn't want to get rid of him because I'm like, you need to let him get his guys into the system. So again, I'm saying that to prove that I like my head coaches to stick around. I want them to develop their system, their identity. The problem that I see with Mayo is that he doesn't have an identity. He has the quintessential corporate mindset of, I'm the big boss now. I get to delegate. I let everybody do everything. And I'm just sitting there overseeing everything. I'm the CEO, which I think Gerard Mayo even said himself. I'm the CEO overlooking everything. And yes, but what has that gotten you? Because and again, I'm not saying that he's not working with the team. I'm not saying that he's not with the defense and that he's not with the offense and that he's sitting in his office up until game day just charting down what's going on, the team, what's going on with the team, the opponent, where we're at, like all these things. He's out there working with the guys. He's watching the guys. He's trying to help them out. I get it. Like, I'm not sitting here calling Gerard Mayo a bad dude but so far, I have not seen an identity come from this team. There is nothing to identify with. We're not an offensive team. We're not a defensive team. And the worst part is the vast majority of our players is the same team from last year. And honest to God, it has really been quite impressive for them to do this. But for some strange reason, even though we are 3 and 11? We are 3 and 11 right now. I feel like we're 1 and 13 or 0 and 14. That's how this team feels right now. When they lose, it is spectacular in how they lose. They get, they get blown out or they lose in a fashion that you're just stunned by. Stunned by. Look at Tennessee losing in overtime because you took the wrong direction. You gave them the wind at their backs. And then you look at Indianapolis. You look at Anthony Richardson threw 50%. He was under 50% for a decent portion of that game, and then somehow climbs up to 50 and has a drive of his career. You lose to Seattle because you let the game, the field goal that would have put you up by I think 6 points. You get that field goal blocked, and then you get your ass handed to you by Arizona, by Miami. I can only imagine what's going to happen on Sunday against Josh Allen after coming off a victory against Detroit, of all teams. You know, a Super Bowl I think America wants to see. A Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl, which would be awesome. I don't know who would not want that outside of Kansas City Chiefs fans, which they can all piss off for all I care. But, yeah, aren't I nice? So, you know, it's this wild world that we're living in. You know, and again, it was reported early last week, coming on, you know, during the bye week, or maybe even right before the bye week. Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal puts out an article saying that depending on how these next 4 games go, Mayo can be on the hot seat. Then on Saturday, which I found kind of funny because it literally sat for quite a while. You know, if it wasn't early last week, it was right after the Indianapolis game going into the bye week. It sat out there. The world knew it at this point. Then all of a sudden on Saturday or Sunday, Diana Rossini tweets and writes, courtesy of The Athletic, while there hasn't been a public vote of confidence for the head coach from the Kraft family, Patriots leadership is standing by Mayo. Just as discussions about the next NFL hiring cycles heat up, team owner Robert Kraft has privately assured those close to him that he's committed to giving his first-year head coach the time and resources he needs to grow into the role, which would just be an absolute joke. It's not even a joke. It's a travesty at this point. And before I continue, I do just want to shout out frequent commenter, Not Doug. Would love that Super Bowl, referring to a Lions-Bills Super Bowl. I think it would be absolutely awesome to watch. Both high-power offenses, pretty good defenses, and the fact that you have Bills Mafia going to a Super Bowl. Oh, my God. I don't think Bills Mafia was Bills Mafia in the 90s with Jim Kelly, but now this iteration of Bills Mafia jumping through tables, I can only imagine what that would be like. And if wherever the Super Bowl is at this year, if it is a Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl and the a-holes of that city, that county, that state, that stadium, if they decide to ban folding tables, they can all go to hell. That is a joke. You need to have folding tables if the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia are going to be at a Super Bowl. You need to have folding tables. But back to my point. You cannot have Gerard Mayo back for a second year. You can't. I don't care who you get as the offensive coordinator, because you're not going to get a good offensive coordinator. You're just not. I don't know any offensive coordinator that is looking at this team and thinking to themselves, this is where I want to be. Now, if Gerard Mayo does get let go, again, I would love Ben Johnson, even though he is a first-time head coach. I get that. A lot of people are starting to poo-poo that and starting to say they wouldn't want that. Super Bowl is in New Orleans. All right, Appreciate that. Yeah. If, again, it's, oh my God, Bills Mafia and Mardi Gras. Oh my God. Just, it would be electric factory. But, yes, if you want to bring in Ben Johnson, I think that would be a good thing because you have a head coach that can teach Drake May what it takes to be a quarterback in this league and be a successful quarterback in this league. And I also heard, what was it, Monday night, Tommy Curran let it be known that rumors have it that Mike Vrabel would be interested in returning to the Patriots as a head coach. And I would love that because Mike Vrabel is a football guy, but he's also kind of an a-hole in a good way. In a good way, where he's keeping guys accountable. And I'm not saying Mayo's not, but it would be really interesting. My only thought about Vrabel would be, okay, who's going to be his offensive coordinator? That would be my only concern, my only question. But if that were to happen tomorrow without knowing who his OC is going to be, I would still be very excited about it. Not only because he was one of my favorite Patriots growing up and watching him catch touchdowns in Super Bowls, but I would also love it because here's a guy who's actually done something as a head coach in this league. And look who he had at quarterback. He made it to the AFC Championship game, I'm pretty sure. He made it to the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill. I mean, Mike, that's why I would love this. That's why I would be excited for this. But again, it's still a long ways away. It's still a long ways away, and depending on how things play out, I believe that the Krafts 1,000% need to swallow their pride and stop and they have to let him go. They have to let him go. I mean, look at the scene from Sunday. I mean, look at Jonathan just getting all pissed off. And this is, of course, after getting stuffed on 4th and 1. They were so mad and talking about the play calling. But again, it's everything that has to do with it. With Gerard, with AVP, with the front office, with the players, with the roster construction. It all stems back to the Krafts. They cannot hide behind Brady. They cannot hide behind Belichick anymore. You can't, they have no one to hide behind. They are now at the forefront. And I know I promised you this clip, and I want to show it to you. Here is Burt Breer talking about Mayo's comments from Sunday.
Guys, but that felt like he was throwing Alex Van Pelt under the bus.
Yeah, that's the only reason you're comparing it to that. Was this a bad? So what do you think of the comment that was made?
I just think that's a really hard thing to come back from because the players see that. They see the lack of accountability. The other coaches see that. And so let's say you come out of this year and you're not happy with how things are, but you're going to keep Gerard Mayo and you're going to change some of the staff. How are you going to get coaches here then? Because they're all going to think that Gerard Mayo is in the hot seat in 2025, and now you have this. Where he threw a guy who's been in the industry for a long time under the bus. Now, I assume Gerard's going to walk it back tomorrow. The trouble with that is that we've already been down that road a few times.
Too many times.
And I think Gerard's got a great potential as a coach, but it's starting to feel like if you're the Krafts and you're looking at it and it's like we only have one shot at Mike Vrabel, how do you compare what's happened here versus Vrabel? And on that field today, right?
Are you inferring that Mayo probably talked himself onto the hot seat today, Albert?
I think he may have, yeah. I can't remember seeing a comment like that from a head coach in 20 years.
I mean, even he brought it up himself. that Gerard Mayo has walked his comments back before. So really, again, should Mayo have kept his job? Or, would we, again, the question being, would we be treating any other head coach, any other first-year head coach the same way? And again, if the question was alluding that they were talking like Gerard Mayo, they were walking it back the very next day, I think we would. But if the head coach was buttoned up, again, classic Bill Belichick, sometimes, I hate to say it, but, if they were buttoned up, they were sitting there going, hey, you know what? It's on me. Yeah, we had a tough loss. We're going to go back, watch the film, and we're going to try to get better every single week. Problem, then that would be fine as long as they are improving. But that's the thing. Gerard Mayo right now feels like a politician to me who is promising improvement, but in the meantime, while they're in office, has done nothing to benefit us, has done nothing to show why we should reelect him. And I know he's got a contract. I know it's, a multiple-year contract probably, but, hey, at least to the Krafts, at least it's cheap enough where they can let him go, pay him the rest. And I do also want to make one thing very clear before we wrap up tonight's show, is that I, like Bert Breer said, I believe Gerard Mayo can be a good coach. I do. I think the issue is with him is, one, he doesn't have enough experience. Two, he needs to understand what he says and how he says things. Yes, it sucks to lose. Yes, it's a very emotional thing when you put in all this work, when you're in the office day after day, time after time, but again, you need to understand what you're saying. I just hope that if and when Gerard Mayo does, get let go, I hope if we don't, another team picks him up, makes him an assistant coach, makes him a linebackers coach, and then he can build up his resume. He can build up his reputation rather and get another crack at it. Because I believe that he can be good. I just don't want Gerard Mayo to have a Mike Singletary-esque career when it comes to coaching. I don't want that for him. I really don't. And while it was great watching him play, it has been a very different story watching him coach. And the reports coming out that he was disrespecting the offense late last season about how they couldn't get their acts together. And, he was walking around the stadium with a bat, kind of acting cocky, like he, was the cock of the walk and all that. If those reports are true, it's because he knew that he was going to be the next head coach at the start of this year. He knew that. In which case he got, lazy and he didn't do his job. He didn't go out to recruit and scout potential coaches that he wanted to coach with. Instead, he had to rely on Elliott Wolf, who is the only guy who has been around the league elsewhere, to start calling in favors, calling friends and saying, hey, we got an OC spot open for you. We got a quarterback spot open for you. Are you interested? Are you available? Do you want to join the Patriots organization? What was, there was a report, I think during the middle of last week or where, it came out that the interview process with Mayo, Wolf, and oh my gosh, what is her name? The Krafts right hand, Robin Glazier, the three of them, Wolf, Glazier, and Mayo, apparently the offensive coordinator interviews were more focused on who they were rather than talking ball, which is what it's all about. At the end of the day, again, if you're a good offensive coordinator, if you're a good coach and you respect authority, listen, we don't have to agree on anything, but as long as you show me why you think this is right, and then I show you why I think I'm right, then we can have some sort of compromise. We can have an understanding. But that's all focused and predicated on talking football. That's the job. Unfortunately, this team has become an organizational failure. That's what this team has become. And it's unbelievable to me how the mighty have fallen. It really is. And I don't know about you, but if you're not disgusted with how this team is looking, how this team is playing, how this team is coached, how this team is put together, better yet, how this team has been run, then you are just blind as a bat. You don't want to know the truth. You can't handle the truth. Because that's what this show is about. It's about telling the truth, telling it like it is. And right now, telling it like it is means the Pats suck top to bottom. It's not fun. It's really not fun. But Josh Allen's about to throw for 9 touchdowns on Sunday. And then we got the Chargers, which is a game that I'm going to be at. Yeah, yours truly is going to be at the Pats-Chargers game. So we're probably going to go live a couple of times, probably do some, maybe a halftime, post-game, emergency press conference, stuff like that, just for the hell of it. And who knows? Maybe that's the one game this team can actually show some signs of improvement. Otherwise, this season has been a colossal failure, a colossal waste of time. The only benefit was the fact that we saw maybe a future potential superstar franchise quarterback in Drake May, and maybe the next best lockdown cover corner in Christian Gonzalez. Other than that, it has been just really painful to watch. But I'm glad you guys showed up. I'm glad you guys are here listening to my thoughts on this Patriots team, on everything that has gone on so far this season. Don't forget, please like, share, subscribe to the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the Grid Network as well. Yep, see right over here, Grid Network as well. You get a whole host of great content producers who put on some fun stuff talking about sports in general. And then also, please subscribe, give me a follow on X at Boss Sports Summit, on Instagram at Boston Sports Summit. You get to interact with me there, hear my thoughts there as well. And also, I am on YouTube on Boston Sports Summit on YouTube. So, listen, thank you so much for sticking around. I really do appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button. And also, I just want to say, Boston, you're my home. God bless you, everyone. And also, no show next week. It is Christmas. So please, everybody, have a Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night. Thank you very much. God bless.